Hey everyone, this is just basically a very short video on Haarp and stuff, like a little weather report for what's coming. Supposedly there's a March Arctic blast set to hit northeast and mid-Atlantic United States in a week, and this was the 16th, so that would pretty much be this weekend. Longer range profiles suggest a large trough coming into the northeastern U.S. so it's after March 23rd, bringing it seasonal temperatures that will be way below average. So apparently the groundhog was right. An Arctic blast is scheduled to hit the country, and it says the cold air will make it down to North Carolina as well, where much below normal temperatures region-wide will be expected because this is a surface high pressure center. Snowfall will be unlikely across the majority of the region. The dry air will bring the needed dynamics to rapidly cool the region down and will last several days. And that takes us to the chemtrail report. They only do 3 days. They were doing 5 days. I don't know what's going on with it, but this is Saturday, so you know this is pretty much the area that they were talking about. So for the 3 days that they have, this is all Thursday to Thursday night. Basically a big blob west-southwest in the center of the country moving eastwards. Here's the Haarp status report. I'm getting this from the weatherspace.com. It's pretty up to date. This is from today, March 20th of this year, and it's low to medium out there in the west coast, all of California, and basically a lot of the eastern part of the United States, Mississippi, eastward. As far as what's left on Saturday, it's basically the Panhandle and the Rust Belt, the Midwest. It looks like all of the state of Washington. Someone commented that they're from California and they don't get these chemtrails when it shows up there. I don't really know what to say about it. There's a lot of people that say this is accurate, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not a meteorologist or anything, but maybe it has something to do with the ocean. When I was out there, the one time I was out there, I noticed that they didn't have as many sprayers as they did here in the Midwest, and I was in pretty close to the coast in Oregon, and they just had a few sprayers, and it definitely wasn't like how it was in the Midwest. We just get hosed, and it's just a big chemical blanket. You can actually see visibility go down from all the chemicals falling, but it wasn't like that out there. It was just more clear, bluer skies. Unfortunately, I don't think they keep like a report of their Haarp status reports, but when I checked it before, it was like from I want to say it was like the 14th or something like that, but maybe it was earlier. I just remember that it was before, whenever this earthquake happened in California, that it was only California. It was the only place that was being pulsed moderately. But California earthquake, I mean, this place is always rocking, so the fault line. But California earthquake 6.8 Trembler erupts from hotspot off northern coast. So this was in northern California. It says here that it was in the Gorda Plate, an offshore piece of the Earth's crust at the northern end of the San Andreas. It's been the site of 20 quakes of magnitude 5.9 or higher since 1976. The region's known as the Mendocino Triple Junction, a hotbed of earthquake activity thanks to the motions of the three tectonic plates that meet there. And just some backstory, and I'll move on here. It says here that this earthquake and at least 13 aftershocks were triggered by a rupture along the fault of the Gorda Plate, which is slowly sliding underneath the northern California and southern Oregon coast, a process that over the last 600,000 years built California's Mount Shasta and Mount Lassen volcanoes. As far as when the, quote, big one will hit California, they say seismic activity in California is starting to pick up. Earlier in March, a 6.9 magnitude earthquake struck off the northern California coastline. Then it says here that it was followed by a series of at least 13 aftershocks. Scientists are becoming increasingly concerned about the potential for catastrophic destruction in northern California, and more that they study the Cascadia Fault. According to one recent study, a 9.0 earthquake along the Cascadia Fault could produce a giant tsunami that would wash away coastal towns. So this is what I've mentioned before. It says here that it would have a catastrophic ripple effect The giant tsunami created by the quake would wash away coastal towns, destroy US 101, and cause $70 billion in damage over a large swath of the Pacific coast. More than 100 bridges would be lost, power lines toppled, and coastal towns isolated. Residents would have as few as 15 minutes notice to flee to higher ground, and as many as 10,000 would perish. Scientists last year published this grim scenario for a massive rupture along the Cascadia Fault system, which runs 700 miles offshore from Northern California to Vancouver Island. It says here that when you're talking about the big one, most people think of the San Andreas Fault in Southern California. As far as that goes, that the damage that a massive quake would do to downtown LA would be up to 3 times greater than previously believed. They said that the waves, seismic waves, would actually travel on the path of Freeway 10 or 10 Freeway into the heart of LA, where the city and suburbs will suffer stronger ground motions than previously believed. They'll endure times of shaking of surrounding areas, and they said that the study shows that a funneling action of seismic waves will roll straight into LA's basin through a 60-mile-long corridor, striking 13 million people in that region. That goes from Santa Monica Mountains to Newport Bay. And lastly, they say that it could be today or 100 years from now. They don't really know, but they know that the Ring of Fire has been more active, and California sits right along it. This is an article that I wanted to cover in my first video because it just kind of had to go with the whole prison theme, but I guess I'll cover it here because it is climate. Is misinformation about the climate criminally negligent? This is from March 13th. It says the importance of clearly communicating science to the public should not be underestimated. Accurately understanding our natural environment and sharing the info can be a matter of life and death. You know, just like they could prevent, or not prevent, they can't prevent an earthquake, but they could try to do something to prepare for this real big one, this 9.0 and the tsunami and stuff. But as far as what I know, they haven't really done much to reinforce bridges and build reinforce dams and upgrade them and stuff like that. It says, but when it comes to global warming, much of the public remains in denial about a set of facts that the majority of scientists clearly agree on. Well, I guess when you don't allow a bunch of other scientists who disagree with it to say anything, that I guess that they don't count. So then the majority of them are the only ones that are allowed to talk. With such high stakes, an organized campaign funding misinformation ought to be considered criminally negligent. Kind of weird where the article goes, because then they take something that is legitimately, people should know, right? They go into earthquakes that hit Italy in 2009. They say it was botched communication, left 66,000 people homeless, 300 people dead. So, actually, it says that the scientist and local defense minister were sentenced to 6 years in prison. It says the ruling is popularly thought to have convicted scientists for failing to predict an earthquake. And they say, of course, we know that you cannot predict an earthquake. All we want is clear information on the risk in order to make our choices. So it sounds kind of reasonable. So, yeah, they go on and on about the earthquake, but then they finally go, I submit that this is just what is happening with the current well-documented funding of global warming denialism. So I didn't know that it was well-funded to be a skeptic of this global warming theory. It says more deaths can already be attributed to climate change. So, and again, they throw in the earthquake. It says that it'll be certain that deaths from climate change will continue to rise with global warming. Nonetheless, climate denial remains a serious deterrent against meaningful political action. Well, it doesn't really matter, because if they're spraying to combat global warming, they're already doing it. So they haven't really asked anybody. It doesn't really matter the side effects on us, people, nature, the earth. It says here, we have good reason to consider the funding of climate denial to be criminally and morally negligent. The charge of criminal and moral negligence ought to extend to all activities of the climate deniers who receive funding as part of a sustained campaign to undermine the public's understanding of scientific consensus. So what if people aren't receiving funding? Either way, they say that negligence is normally understood to result from failure to avoid reasonably foreseeable harms. Those funding climate denial campaigns can reasonably predict the public's diminished ability to respond to climate change as a result of their behavior. Indeed, public uncertainty regarding climate science and the resulting failure to respond to climate change is the intended or intentional aim of politically and financially motivated denialists. I mean, I don't know. Most of the people that are denialists are, like I said, they're like scientists or academics that have lost their jobs, have been ostracized by the scientific community, politicians who are kind of laughed at, and people like myself that are just doing this. Basically, we're not being heavily funded by big companies or anything. Basically, we're trying to raise awareness, right, that their theory doesn't actually exist. Just information being spread for free. But so yeah. Yeah, it's funny they say the willful disregard for human life, those that are deniers, you know. And it's like they're trying to fund this campaign against their disinformation. And it's like, well, the people that are spraying to combat global warming are willfully disregarding human life as well. As far as free speech goes, they basically say that funding these campaigns undermine the public's ability to develop and voice informed opinions. It says here that it stretches the definition of free speech to a degree that undermines the very concept. And that's all I have for you. Thank you.